What if one of the world's superpowers decided to seize a NATO ally's territory with military force? Sounds like fiction, but this scenario just became frighteningly real. In January 2026, the Trump administration explicitly stated that military force remains on the table for acquiring Greenland.
But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
So today, we're breaking down exactly how a US military takeover of Greenland would unfold, why it's strategically obsessed, and, most importantly, how likely is this actually happening? I'm Jet Royce, and this is the geopolitical breakdown that could reshape the Western world. First, let's understand why Trump is so obsessed with a frozen island in the middle of the Arctic. Greenland isn't just another territory. It's potentially the most strategically significant piece of real estate on Earth. Greenland sits right on top of the GIUK Gap. That's the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom Gap, basically a massive naval choke point between the Arctic and the Atlantic. Think of it like the Panama Canal, but for naval powers trying to move submarines and warships. Control Greenland, and you control one of the world's most critical maritime corridors. The US already operates Pituffik Space Base on Greenland, formerly known as Thule Air Base. This isn't just any base. It hosts the 12th Space Warning Squadron, which operates the most advanced ballistic missile early warning system on the planet. This radar system protects North America from intercontinental missiles coming over the Arctic. Russia knows this. China watches this. Everyone understands this base is critical. The mineral gold mine. Here's what gets Trump excited. Greenland holds between 36 to 42 million metric tons of rare earth elements, making it potentially the world's second largest reserve after China. We're talking about yttrium, neodymium, dysprosium, elements that power everything from smartphones to F-35 fighter jets to electric vehicle batteries. China controls 69% of global rare earth production. The US needs alternatives, badly. As Arctic ice melts, new shipping routes open up. The Northwest Passage could cut shipping times from Asia to Europe by 40%. New Arctic oil and gas becomes accessible. This is why Russia has militarized the Arctic with 40-plus icebreakers, and China declared itself a near-Arctic state. For Trump's administration, Greenland represents complete Arctic dominance. Military control, economic leverage, and strategic advantage all wrapped into one frozen island. Now, let's get tactical. How would the US actually execute a military takeover of Greenland? Phase 1. The Surge and Blockade, Days 1 to 2. The US already has approximately 100 to 150 military personnel stationed at Pituffik Base. Under the existing 1951 defense agreement, the US can surging troop presence. They've done Arctic exercises where fighter jets deploy to Greenland in 72 hours. First move, quietly surge an additional 5,000 to 10,000 troops to Pituffik, while simultaneously establishing a naval blockade around the island. This would include Aegis-equipped destroyers patrolling the waters, submarine presence to cut off maritime escape routes, F-35 fighters establishing air superiority, rapid airlift of additional forces using C-17 Globemasters. Think of Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela on January 3, 2026. The Trump administration just captured a president and flew him out of the country without consulting Congress. They demonstrated they can execute bold military operations rapidly. Phase 2. Rapid Airborne Insertion, Day 2 to 3. The primary objective would be Nuuk, Greenland's capital city on the southwest coast. Home to about 19,000 people, Greenland's entire administrative center. The US military would deploy 2,000 to 3,000 paratroopers from the 11th Airborne Division. They already train Arctic operations regularly. MV-22B Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft for rapid insertion. Special Operations Forces to secure government buildings. Quick Reaction Forces positioned for any resistance. Greenland has virtually no standing army. The Danish military presence on the island includes maybe 500 to 1,000 personnel scattered across multiple locations. The capital would fall within 48 hours, maximum 72 hours. Phase 3, Consolidation, days 3 to 7. Once nuke is secured, the U.S. would establish military government structure, secure the Pituffik Space Base absolutely, control all airports and ports, deploy additional logistics to stabilize the territory, issue statements about restoring order and national security operations. The entire operation could be completed in a military sense within a week. Geography works in America's favor here. Greenland is 3,000 kilometers from Denmark's mainland. Denmark's navy is tiny, 9 frigates, no submarines, 17,300 total military personnel. They literally cannot respond in time or with sufficient force. The model, Venezuela playbook. January 3rd, 2026, Trump's administration launched Operation Absolute Resolve. They bombed Venezuelan air defenses, inserted forces to capture President Maduro, flew him to New York, and arrested him without prior congressional notification. Trump then announced the U.S. would run Venezuela until a proper transition occurred. The same playbook could apply to Greenland, except easier because there's no real military resistance. Let's be brutally honest about the military math. This wouldn't be a war. It would be a military occupation of a NATO ally by its most powerful member, United States. 2.1+ million active duty and reserve personnel. 11 aircraft carriers. Denmark has 0. 5,000+ fighter aircraft. Denmark has 47 total. Unlimited amphibious assault capability. Integrated space, cyber, and AI warfare capabilities. Rapid global deployment infrastructure. Denmark, including Greenland. 83,000 total military personnel. 9 frigates, 0 submarines, 0 aircraft carriers, 47 F-35A and F-16 fighters, 3,500 naval personnel. Limited rapid deployment capability. Geographic constraint, 3,000 kilometers distance from home territory. The reality: Denmark couldn't defend Greenland if it wanted to. There's no military scenario where Denmark wins. Even with NATO support, there's a fundamental problem. By the time NATO mobilizes reinforcements, the US would already control the island militarily. But here's the critical factor. Denmark has made clear they would resist. Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen stated that Danish troops are under standing orders from 1952 to shoot first and ask questions later if Greenland is attacked. So there would be combat, casualties, and international crisis. But it wouldn't change the military outcome. The United States would win a military conflict over Greenland in approximately 72 hours to 1 week. Here's where it gets interesting. The military operation would be easy. The consequences would be apocalyptic. Implication number 1. NATO dies. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen stated explicitly, if the United States decides to militarily engage another NATO nation, then everything halts, including NATO. This isn't hyperbole. NATO operates on Article 5. An attack on one member is an attack on all. If the US attacks Greenland, Danish territory, Denmark would be forced to invoke Article 5. The entire NATO alliance would face a constitutional crisis. The US would veto its own defense against itself, creating a cascading failure of alliance credibility. Why would any European country trust NATO if the United States can unilaterally attack a member? The entire transatlantic security structure collapses. This isn't just about Greenland. It's about 76 years of Western alliance architecture. Implication number 2. The end of US global credibility. If the US military forces a NATO ally and seizes territory in violation of international law, Every country watching, India, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, realizes the rule-based international order just died. If the US can do it to Denmark, who's safe? This scrambles global security calculations overnight. Implication number 3, congressional mutiny. Republicans are already breaking ranks. Senator Mitch McConnell called any military action an especially catastrophic act of strategic self-harm. Senator Tom Tillis said he's sick of stupid regarding military force. Speaker Mike Johnson stated Congress certainly would not support military intervention. Senators Ruben Gallego and Tim Kaine are drafting resolutions to prevent military action on Greenland. The War Powers Act could be invoked, creating a constitutional battle between the executive and legislative branches. Implication number 4, Russian and Chinese opportunity. While the US is consuming itself over Greenland, Russia could move on Ukraine. China could move on Taiwan. The Middle East destabilizes. The Arctic strategy backfires completely. Instead of securing Arctic dominance, the US fragment its power base. Implication number 5, rare earth resources become worthless. Here's the cruel irony. Greenland's rare earth mines are economically viable under Danish Greenlandic administration, but under military occupation, international sanctions would make processing impossible. Rare earth ore would sit in the ground. China would dominate the market even more. Implication number 6, population resistance. Greenland has 57,000 people. They don't want this. Surveys show the vast majority oppose US control. The US would be occupying an unwilling population of mostly indigenous Kalalit people, raising decolonization questions. This becomes a long-term counterinsurgency headache. So, realistically, what are the chances Trump actually orders a military invasion of Greenland? Arguments for it happening. The administration just captured a foreign leader in Venezuela without congressional authorization. Trump has shown willingness to bypass institutional constraints. Military capability exists. Operation would succeed militarily. Strategic logic is sound from a national security perspective. Trump is unpredictable and dismisses traditional diplomatic norms. Recent White House statements keep military option on the table explicitly. Arguments against it happening. Congressional opposition is real and bipartisan. Media and public opinion is overwhelmingly opposed. YouGov poll, 60% plus Americans oppose. NATO allies have made clear this ends the alliance. Trump's own advisors, State Department, prefer diplomatic solutions. Cost-benefit analysis is catastrophic. Courts might intervene under constitutional law. Even Trump's supporters, like Mitch McConnell, are drawing a hard red line. Intelligence assessment. The Trump administration is using military threats as diplomatic leverage. They're trying to pressure Denmark into allowing expanded US military presence in Greenland, Greenland becoming more autonomous, easier to pressure directly, mineral extraction agreements favoring US companies, Arctic strategic concessions. It's coercive diplomacy, not genuine invasion preparation. The honest prediction. Probability of actual military invasion, 5 to 15%. Probability of significant escalation and military buildup, 60 to 70%. Probability of eventual diplomatic deal allowing expanded US presence, 70 to 80%. Probability this ends with NATO severely strained, 85% plus. The most likely scenario. Trump uses military threats to extract concessions. Denmark reinforces Greenland's defenses, already allocating $13.8 billion, and the crisis eventually de-escalates into a new security arrangement. But the damage to transatlantic relations is permanent. From a pure strategic standpoint, Trump's move is both tactically sound and strategically catastrophic. Why it makes sense. Arctic is becoming the next great power competition arena. China and Russia are aggressively expanding Arctic presence. US cannot afford to cede Arctic control. Rare earths are genuine national security assets. Pituffik Base is critical to US missile defense architecture. Why it's actually idiotic. Destroying NATO to control the Arctic defeats the purpose. European military power becomes irrelevant, benefiting Russia. US loses forward bases across Europe. China and Russia gain opportunities while US is distracted. Minerals don't matter if the alliance collapses. The paradox is clear. Trump wants to strengthen US position in the Arctic by potentially destroying the alliance structure that makes Arctic defense possible. It's strategically incoherent. So here's the bottom line. Yes, the US could militarily take Greenland. It would be relatively easy from a pure military perspective, but the consequences would reshape global politics, likely destroy NATO, trigger constitutional crises at home, and ultimately weaken American strategic position globally. This is a perfect example of tactical capability meeting strategic stupidity. Greenland is the ultimate geopolitical trap, accessible enough that a superpower might try to take it, but consequential enough that doing so breaks everything. The real question isn't whether the US can take Greenland, it's whether the cost of winning makes victory worthless. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button because Arctic geopolitics are about to dominate global strategy. What's your take? Is Trump actually going for it, or is this pure negotiating pressure? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Jet Royce. Thanks for watching.